Auburn has a new coach, Hugh Freeze, and right now they're looking for coordinators. The hot name in the coordinator race right now is Derek Nix, former running back at Southern Mississippi in the early 2000s, late 90s. Really accomplished guy, got some time in the league. Has been at Ole Miss for a while now. Really respected recruiter in Mississippi. Uh, I don't think he's ever called it. He's been a running backs coach, and more recently, he's been a wide receivers coach. I think that if he does come right now, from what people are saying, is that he is torn on does he want to come in that capacity. He wouldn't come. He wouldn't make a lateral move as a wide receivers coach, or it would have to be a promotion. That leads me to believe that if he did come, he would be coaching the wide receivers, and the UCF wide receiver coach Grant Hurd probably isn't hasn't already accepted the job, has been reported some places, but that remains to be seen. But I do think that if Derek Nix was to take the job, I think it'd be great. As we know, recruiting is the main thing. So a lot of time we got a saying that we say, keep the main thing the main thing. Recruiting is, I mean, Jimmy's and Joe's. You got to have guys, you got to have players in order to be successful. Just to go back into what Dion did, Dion had a great scheme for that conference, but he had the best players in the conference as well. So, yeah, I think Derek Nix will be a great addition if he does decide to come. I've heard some other names too. Matt Longo, the offense coordinator at North Carolina. Then you've got oh man, a couple other names. I think Derek Nix is the front runner at this point, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, Also, you've got the defensive coordinator. Who's it going to be? People are saying that Crime Dog's got the job already. He would be co-DC. If Crime Dog were to be co-DC, the assumption is that Travis Williams of UCF would be the other co-defense coordinator. They would call it together. I think that would be a strong move as far as recruiting wise. Uh, I do think that Travis left a lot to be desired this past weekend. And UCF, they gave up over 600 yards to Tulane. But, I mean, if that's the criteria, if your last game is the criteria based upon that your hire is based upon, then Hugh Freeze wouldn't have a job either after that bad streak that he had towards the end of the season. So Lane Kiffin neither. I mean, Lane Kiffin laid an egg in his last game this season too. The other candidate for defensive coordinator who I think is really interesting is Barry Odom of Arkansas, who I think is going to leave Arkansas regardless. I think he's in on the Tulsa job. He's been a head coach. He's been successful in the SEC, former Missouri head coach. Really knows a lot. I think he'll do a lot as far as the X's and O's. Having a former head coach does help. I talked to Joshua Horton of Langston Hughes. His recruitment, he took a picture the other day. He had Mark when he committed to flipped his commitment to Miami. He had Mario Cristobal and Charlie Strong in the house. That's strong. The more head coaches that you can put in a recruiting service, I mean, in his house, that's wild. So yeah, I think Barry Odom would also be a really good candidate if he were to get it. I also heard Chris Kiffin, who I think has a lot of the experience at this level. Also, right now, I mean, to go from coaching the D line like the Browns with probably one of the best defensive linemen in the game, and Myles Garrett has some familiarity with Jeremy Garrett, the new defensive line coach who was brought over from Liberty, who's already making an impact on the recruiting trail at Madhouse, home to the training facility that's home to five-star James Smith and five-star Quay Russo. Tracy Varner, who runs that facility, who's one of the guys who runs it, was very impressed with Garrett, so much so that Auburn will be probably getting an unofficial visit and possibly leading up to getting an official visit. So I think that's big in their recruitment. But yeah, if I had to, it's hard for me to say who I think the best candidate is. Recruiting wise, I think Travis probably be the best candidate. Experience wise, I probably think that Barry Odom is probably the best candidate. And if it came down to intangibles, I would probably say Chris Kiffin. And Zach Arnett was a name that I thought was super interesting. Does a lot of exotic blitzing, has some familiarity in the SEC West, knows the recruiting imprint. I don't think he's as would be as good as a recruiter for Auburn as Trav would, but I do think having that experience in the SEC, as far as being a younger guy doing it too, um, kind of in the same mode as a Dan Lanning. So I think he's another really, really interesting candidate. So I don't think if you out of those four, Auburn can't really do any wrong. All four have their pluses and their minuses, but yeah, I think that's a pretty solid class. And then it could be somebody nobody knows. Like everybody goes to the message boards and you take something, but as a guy who contributes and who's an insider, man, we all passing around information and we all talk off the record and we all trying to figure out what's going on. So I think a lot of times people just take that stuff as fact. Like, oh, I saw it on the message board. It's got to be true. And as we saw, insider information and trying to be first a lot of times, it can get you in some hot water. So yeah, definitely. I think it does bear some patience, but I would think that a decision will have to be made today, Monday or Tuesday, with the portal opening up because you can't afford to get behind. And so Auburn recruiting last week, you had they only got like 5, 6 coaches that can go out. Like I don't know how they doing it, but as far as coaches that are actually on the staff, all you got is Zach Etheridge, Christian Robinson, Cadillac Williams, Hugh Freeze, and I think the new guy, the tight ends coach from Liberty. I don't even know if he's on field officially or not. He hasn't even been officially introduced. I call him Ben Agamawa, I think. Forgive me. But with that being said, you can't spread your imprint out. So you got state championship games in Alabama last week. You had you got state semifinals games in Georgia last week. So I do know that Hugh Freeze is planning on being in the Atlanta area. He will be making the stop towards Langston Hughes this week. So I think that should go well for Auburn recruiting. But yeah, it remains to be seen. But what I do know is that Hugh Freeze has a good pulse of how to recruit in the SEC. And I really just think he's pretty much the football version of Bruce Pearl. I can't say that enough.